unrelated issues in the form of opinion-based comments only. The purpose of allowing public comments is not to give a platform for personal-based direct attacks against other people or board members or the like. Is there anyone who would like to speak public comments? Sir?
My name is Chris Trubetowski, and I currently live at North 9270 East Shore Road. As of tomorrow, because I received all my permits today, the house or the duplex and the old double Ds will come down, and my wife and I were happy that we will begin construction of our new home. I've attended a few of the meetings and watched online. I believe that the agenda of the town board is very substantial and being addressed in a very efficient way. And I believe that it is the responsibility of all of us to do what we can to help in that regard. And with that, I want to inform everybody here that as of this morning, I filed a declaration of candidacy for a town supervisor who will be running in the spring election. I believe in three principles that will guide me. They are transparency in government. I believe, especially on the local level, it is critical that people understand why and how things happen. Second, fiscal responsibility. And fiscal responsibility means that within the function, especially at the closest level of government to people, that services are delivered at effective prices and delivered in a way that people understand. And the final principle that will guide me and how I will run my campaign is simply this, and that is equal access. And by that I mean one set of rules for everybody, whether you live on a lake, whether you live in the town, whether you're rich, whether you're from Illinois, or you moved from Milwaukee like me so you can get away from all of the stuff that's there. Everybody deserves to have equal access. You'll see me at meetings, I'll be there. I'll be there at the budget meeting because I'm very interested in learning some more things about that, because there's some things that as I read the reports that come out that don't make sense to me, that the numbers don't add up, and I want to understand why. So, with that, thank you for listening to me, and you'll be hearing from me more in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, my name is Fabian Watoka, and starting out, I'd like to thank the board for everything you guys have listened to for the last almost 2 years as far as wake surfing, all the different positions. Pardon me?
Can you state your address, please?
1747 and 1751 Lake Road.
Thank you.
Yep. So, I think all of us, and I'm part of Beulah Responsible Voters, but everybody here is supportive of a healthy, safe, and responsible lake system, and it requires mutual respect. It requires courtesy and the patience in listening to diverse objectives or opinions on what everybody thinks. And we've taken in a ton of information from a variety of different sources. At this point, we're looking at an ordinance that has a 500-foot shoreline buffer, 25-foot depth restriction, and that's been supported by Lake Beulah Management District, Protect Lake Beulah for sure. The 25-foot depth isn't necessarily something that's supported by the studies in this area. Most of the gold standard studies, like the St. Anthony Falls, Minnesota studies, recommends a 20 feet depth in surf mode. It also recommends at least no less than 10 feet for non-surf boats, which we're apparently not addressing at all. And regardless of whether it's cruising, planing, or in a surf boat, sediment redistribution is going to occur. The assessment of that impact is something that's very difficult to study. And to be honest, none of these studies have really looked at sediment redistribution. They haven't looked at specific areas as to the impact it has on shoreline spawning. The second thing is the Terravigila study didn't actually make a depth recommendation, or they didn't actually measure the study of suspended sediment in the water column. Terravigilus observed lake bottom surf mode impacts at 21 feet, but didn't say anything beyond that. They did suggest that people move on to do further studies at different depths. So the St. Anthony Falls 2022 study only evaluated wave height, energy, and power, did not address potential environmental impacts such as shoreline riparian erosion, water quality degradation, or alteration to aquatic habitats. And that's something else that's been sketchy as far as reporting of water quality on Lake Beulah. I know their DNR does their studies on it, but to be able to demonstrate that there's actually been a cause and effect study, even in the last Protect Lake Beulah Management newsletter, they now found the zebra mussels are friendly because they're clearing water, which is counterintuitive to anything that people have looked at in the past. The third has to do with Lake Beulah Management Department's own weed harvesting permit by Lake and Pond Solutions in 2021, noted that plant species capable of growing to 20+ foot depths, and the deep growing plant community is a positive sign of Beulah's health. The deep community is made up of very few species and can exist under those conditions, but add greatly to the diversity and the range of flora within the lake. The study further stated that 10 to 20 foot depth range shows a very healthy and diverse plant community. There are 21 different species located in that zone, of which 11 of which exist in the 10 to 15 foot range. And then moving on, the proposed 500 foot buffer appears to be based on the erroneous assumption that no boat should have a shoreline impact greater than the smallest impact created by a completely different type of boat. Hence, if you're running a power boat with a tuber behind it, 200 feet offshore, it's going to give you just as much wave and shoreline. Thank you very much, and thank you again, board.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Rob Siegel, North 8778 Wilmers Point Lane. I'm Rob Siegel, representing the Beulah Responsible Boaters, and we want to sincerely thank the board for this tremendous effort you're going to put into updating and revising our long outdated ordinances. Tackling a high-profile issue like wake surfing as a priority demonstrates true dedication to modernizing our community standards. When I think about the information that's got to be gathered for policy making, I think about all of the words that go along with, the selection or the selective words that go along with looking at what's presented to us. When I look at Chairman Jones' proposal, one of those words that comes to mind is balanced. It's informed, rational, it's a compromise focusing on recreational activities equitably. There's clarity. Recreational zones are to be clearly marked, which is easy to understand. It's pragmatic. The chairman's proposal doesn't rely on a preordained 500-foot setback that in most cases unduly restrict the boundaries of a wave and hand zone as well as create further safety concerns. It's decisive. It's a permanent solution that permits us as a community to now pivot towards optionalizing and educating. It's inclusive. The St. Anthony's Falls study concluded that all boats can impact lake bottoms at 10 feet or less, and it's on us to make sure that we are aware of our boat's impact on the lake bottom. The chairman's proposal reminds us that we are all lake stewards, regardless of the chosen boating activity. And lastly, it's sensible. The chairman's proposed boating in a counterclockwise direction when it's heavy, weekends, holidays will drastically improve boater safety, addressing the lake and boat capacity constraints. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Bob Rice, W884 Shorewood Drive. I wanted to make a comment on the agenda item to approve recommendations to amend section 16 of waterways and boating regulations. I spent some time looking through those in depth. On page 77 of 44, DC 1605.065, it states, no coming through or mooring of boats or rafts in recreational zones 2 and 3 during motorboat hours. I don't know if it's supposed to say or of, or means that you can't moor a boat or raft during recreational hours. If this were approved, it would be that no boats, pontoon boats or fishing boats would be able to anchor outside the slow no wake buoys. You can no longer swim in the middle of the lake on weekends and during ski hours. A lot of us on Potter's Lake, because of the shallow depth of our lake, swim out in the middle of the lake through anchored pontoons or anchored fishing boats when the water's choppy. Another thing I noted was on page 8 of 44, ski hours on Potter's Lake should be updated from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. This would be consistent with what is already on the sign at the boat launch. The lake rules have been distributed for at least the past 21 years and what is currently on the Potter Lake website. This was also voted and consistent with our annual meeting that we held in September. I saw recreational zones for our lake, recreational zones 1, 2, and 3. The only map that was given to the board in the packet showed recreational zones labeled on Lake Beulah. Where are the recreational zones on Potter's Lake? Who's going to be responsible for the buoys? There's a lot of things with traffic lanes greater than 200 feet. Potter's Lake has already complied with that. We do comply with the slow no wake buoys. Recreational zones 1 and 3, fish spawning areas. The fish spawning areas, it's noted in the new proposed, fish spawning areas should be confirmed by DNR and possibly a guided professional fisherman who know and frequent the lake. It'd be helpful to include date ranges for the major fish categories found in Lake Beulah and Potters, bass, northern pike, etc. And we would be required to mark all the fish spawning beds in our lake and put buoys in there. What are our lakes gonna look like if we have to mark every single spawning bed with buoys? I think that's counterproductive. There's sportsmen here who fish. If they mark out all the spawning beds, where do you think the fishermen are gonna go? Our lakes are gonna be more heavily fished than they already are right now. The other thing that I noted too that was changed is swimming rafts. No permits required for a swimming raft, water trampoline, or recreational device or structures, as long as the size is no greater than 200 square feet. This was pulled from the DNR code, NR 326.08, but you failed to list the exemptions. I personally have a water raft with a slide on it. This would prohibit me from keeping my slide, which is approved right now through the DNR, through that NR code. I'm also disturbed. I'm a prior board member of Potter's Lake. If I was still on the board, this information held at the meeting tonight, you're asking to move forward with making these changes. None of the homeowners on our lake are aware. It says to move forward, that's on the agenda, to approve the changes on the agenda. If I would have put this on our Facebook page and put all these things in that are gonna change on our lake or that proposed are gonna be changed, there would be 3 times the amount of people here. I don't know if the board has worked with the Beulah Management District or the Potters Lake District, but I, as a constituent and a homeowner, have not been notified of the changes. I'm only aware because I attend the meetings and look at the packet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Dennis Schultz, W902 Shorewood Drive. I want to echo a little bit of what Bob Rice just said and add on that the changes and some of the proposals in the new boating regulations and what happens on our lake. A couple of things. We've been buoying our lake for about 30 years now. We can't find anything that said that the town has the ability to come in and tell us where we have to put buoys. They just say that we have to have a traffic lane. The other thing that concerns me is that a number of these items would add a significant cost. For example, an area for the possibility of using wake boats on our lake is such a small area. The packet says it's approximately 3.2 acres, and that's based on information back from the 1950s. That would mean that we'd have to get somebody in here at a significant cost to all the riparian owners to not only have that mapped out and then to have buoys on it And like Bob said just a few minutes ago, we're gonna end up with a lake full of buoys. I'd just like to say that we haven't had the ability to sit down and talk about all of these changes. We'd appreciate that, especially as a riparian owner, to be able to have some kind of input to see this before the town is considering taking action and moving this to the DNR for their approval. Not only is it unfair, it's unjust. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sherry Reilly in 9481 Island Drive. I'm gonna kind of echo what the last two speakers kind of spoke about. So I work full-time. I didn't get a notice about the agenda. I found it online and I went through the majority of the packet. The attorney actually printed out every single page of that packet, I believe.
I did.
It's 150 pages. I only printed out 10.
157.
To ask community to prepare for a meeting, it's very difficult. To ask the board to decipher the amount of things that are in that packet in one meeting is very ambitious. I appreciate what the board is doing, I appreciate what the board has done. However, we had a meeting, not even last fall, where we voted on the whole wakeboarding issue, and nothing really has been done, and now it's all being shoved into one meeting. In addition to how many other changes are being talked about, and that's primarily what I printed out. And we don't even get a chance to acknowledge any of these things, and these things are being talked about after we have the public comment section. So I would make a recommendation that maybe the public comments would follow some of the agenda items, and maybe not be so ambitious in one meeting's requirements. Maybe today should have just been, let's talk about wakeboarding, because those are sensitive things that require DNR approval for us to move on those. But yet that is the major issue that is impacting our lake at this point. And I think that maybe we should be not so ambitious and focus on one at a time. And there's no reason why we can't look at fees at a later date or talk about other things. But I really want to hear number 9. I mean, that's why I believe most of us are here. And I want to hear, before I start critiquing my opinion, I can't really have one because I can't hear what the board has to say. And to ask the town to respond to that without even hearing what your recommendations are, other than Barb Church's wonderful explanation and a motion that is in place. But then there's Chairman Jones's information that I don't know if that's a motion, I don't know if those are changes. We as the town don't really know what's going on. This was incredibly confusing and it's very hard to decipher.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm not gonna speak about wakeboarding, it's not my issue tonight. Good evening, my name is Ken Zess, West 598 Bell School Road. I would like to address the proposed fire protection fee ordinance, agenda item 11B. Under state law, if a town wants to exceed the levy limit, they have to ask the board to approve the increase through a referendum. Instead, the town board wants to exceed the levy limit by establishing a fire protection fee, which falls outside the tax increase because it is claimed as a special charge or fee, somehow not making it a tax. Fire protection is a core government function that benefits the entire community, unlike water or sewer service, which correlates with direct usage. Fire protection is a service that people hope never to need. Therefore, charging a flat or property size-based fee without a direct link to the actual consumption of the service makes the fee inherently unfair and more akin to an unjust tax. The core issue of this proposed fire protection fee is the legal classification as a tax versus a fee. A recent lawsuit filed by the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce is currently challenging similar fire protection fee ordinances adopted by Dowson and Pewaukee in Waukesha County Circuit Court. Opponents argue that the fees are unlawful taxes that are not directionally proportional to the actual use or benefit received by the property owner, a key legal distinction in Wisconsin law. The outcome of this and similar cases will largely determine the long-term viability of property-based fire protection fees in the state. At this time, I would ask that the board delay implementing the fire protection ordinance until the courts have determined the viability of these fire protection fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Fonz and 8680 Wilmers Grove Road. Before I get into comments, I just want to correct a previous comment that was made about the St. Anthony's Falls study. They did recommend, the lake enhancement and 20 feet of water, but it also said 20 feet from the tops of the weeds, which Lake Beulah is a weed bottom covered lake, so that 25-foot recommendation is based and is consistent with the St. Anthony Falls study. It's difficult to provide public comments before board discussions. However, regarding the two-wake surfing zone proposals in the packet, I'd like to share some thoughts and comments. First, considering limited space on the lake and the concern for the earth levee along Highway J, it is good to see both proposed wake plans prohibit wake surfing in the lake. Protecting the lake is, the dam is important as well as the shoreline. Also, regarding the lake, the buoys have been placed at 200 feet for years. So we've had some observations of that type of buoy layout. And many of the residents on Mill Lake have testified that 200-foot distance did not protect the shoreline and protect their property. So the question is, why propose 200-foot for the rest of the lake? And I think we need to consider the experience that we've had with Mill Lake and whether we want to apply that out to the rest of the lake. And now regarding the counterclock pattern proposal with the 200-foot proposal, as shown on the map, requiring the boats to pass along the perimeter of the zones, basically have them going around the outside of the zones. It's constantly putting the wake boat closer to shore and causes repetitive passes in the same areas. This makes the impact worse for those shorelines. Even the wake boat industry warns against doing repetitive passes in the same area. So I think that needs to be considered. Also, if the belief that shaping the wave to the middle of the lake will allow for the 200-foot buffer, this has to be looked at closer. Wake boat hulls are symmetrical like every other boat hull, and the water displacement is virtually equal among both sides of the boat. As fluid dynamic experts point out, a ballasted boat produces a wake with twice the height and 4 times the energy of non-ballasted boats. The experts also state that wave energy versus wave height is more predictive of the impact of the wake on the lake bottom and the lake shoreline, so it's the wake energy. The water displacement from the left side of the boat is virtually equal to the water displacement from the right side of the boat. While the wave shaping alters the wave to be steeper and more attractive for surfing, the water displacement is significant from both sides of the boat and will still do damage and present safety issues. In addition, many wake boats don't even have the ability to shape waves, and the impact is the same regardless of what direction they go in. Surf gates and wave shaping does not alter the power of these boats enough to provide cover for them to operate at 200 feet from shore. This isn't a big deal, but it's another question when we look at any activity. People are right-handed and left-handed, and 2/3 of the wake surfers ride standard stance, 1/3 ride goofy. For forcing them to go in the same direction, what happens to those that don't like to surf that way? Just throwing that out there. It would be a problem for those that don't surf the way you want them to go. The next concern is the pattern between Dockside and Beaver Camp. And if they were forcing them to go through this channel, that's going to prevent a safety hazard where they're going to be going head on into each other. And I think we really need to look at that. It's a 100-foot area, and I just don't think that would be adding safety to the equation. I think my time.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Tom David Bogart, W2035 Beulah Heights Road. I got back yesterday from an African safari and I spent a couple of weeks there. It was awesome to experience nature. There was a lesson that I learned through one of the parks that we went to that I wanted to share with this board and the people. It's Manara National Park in Tanzania. 10 years ago, it supported pink flamingos, tens of thousands of them. And what happened is the lake is half park and it's half farm industry. And the government actually made it a political topic, and they decided that they would let the farmers continue to do as they did, and the park rangers could manage the park as they would manage it. However, it was one lake, and what happened is the farming industry basically killed the lake. The alkali level changed. The crustaceans that the pink flamingos live on all died, and the flamingos got plagues. They died or moved away, and the grass lines along the shore. And now it's impacting the entire ecosystem of the park. And the new elected officials are having to make a decision that for the lions, there's not enough food supply for them. So they either have to make the decision to bring food in to feed the lions or let them starve and die. But the bigger issue is tourism is their number one fund. That's what supports the country. And people are stopping going to this particular park because the wildlife is decreasing. The guide that I was with said that 9 years ago, they would do a night safari and they would see over 1,000 animals. Today, when he does it, they see 100 animals. And he contributes it to the lack of ecological care of the lake, which collapsed the entire system, and it's now impacting the economics of that entire community. And I think that the cost of not following science can be very expensive. So I encourage this board, and with any sort of decisions that are made, not make it political, but to follow the science and make sure that we're doing the right thing for Lake Beulah. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Steve Hewley, W1763 Lake Road. I'm here tonight as the current president of Protect Lake Beulah, a volunteer organization that's been protecting and improving Lake Beulah for more than 130 years. As protectors of the lake, we've dealt with many issues over the course of those 130 years, beginning with the removal of the stumps following the creation of the Highway J Dam, the introduction of power boats, the Supreme Court decision related to the high-capacity well, and most recently, the impact of wake surfing technology. For the last 2 years, PLB has been carefully gathering reliable wake surfing data, and we've been sharing that data with our local leaders and the citizens of East Troy. Over the course of those 2 years, the data has become increasingly reliable and increasingly consistent. At the suggestion of this august body, we have even conducted scientifically sound studies right here on Lake Beulah, with the cooperation of the management district using public funds. Likewise, public opinion has been consistently in favor of limiting wake surfing in order to protect the health of the area lakes. Tonight's ordinance proposal from Supervisor Church is the culmination of all that input. It is quite possibly the only opportunity to allow wake surfing in a safe and minimally impactful way. It calls for wake surfing in select areas of the lake with a minimum depth of 25 feet and a minimum distance from shore of 500 feet. The language used in her proposal is language that has already survived the scrutiny of the DNR. And it is language that has already served many other Wisconsin communities well. In short, Supervisor Church's proposal is the shortest, easiest path to achieving a compromise solution that allows wake surfing on Lake Beulah, and PLB supports the passage of Supervisor Church's proposal. If, for some reason, Supervisor Church's proposal fails, PLB leadership will support the more exhaustive efforts of Chairman Jones with one very important condition. And that condition is the removal of the 20-foot deep and 200-foot from shore criterion and replacement of said with 25 feet of depth and 500 feet from shore. PLB commends Chairman Jones for his efforts in rewriting almost the entirety of the waterways and boating ordinance. And is especially appreciative of the AIS section, as that is yet another area of grave concern. Another concern with Chairman Jones' proposal is the scale and the complexity might hinder the approval or slow its implementation. In conclusion, PLB leadership still believes that wake surfing is inappropriate for Lake Beulah. But in the interest of reaching a compromise solution that allows for carefully controlled wake surfing activity, along with reliable data gathering during the summer of 2026, we recommend passage of Supervisor Church's proposal, and failing that, the passage of Chairman Jones' proposal with the removal and replacement of those 20 and 200-foot criteria. Working together, we can do what the East Troy community has long been known for, and that is finding compromise solutions that preserve and protect town resources while allowing an ever-expanding universe of enjoyable activities
That's time.
both on and off the water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Pat Bergen, W1950 Pastime Lane. I'm also the chair of the Lake Beulah Management District. The Management District supports Commissioner Church's proposal. I'm not going to repeat, or I'm going to try not to repeat anything that's already been said. But with respect to Chairman Jones' proposal, the zones as described are not cumulative. That is, there's no distance limitation from shore in Zone 3. The only restriction is 20 feet of depth. This would mean that Zone 3 can duck into, of course, Zone 1 and areas along Pastime Lane. That would bring surf boats within 60 feet of shore. Zone 3 simply cannot say prohibited motorboat activities, none. That literally means you can do anything you want in Zone 1. So there are no restrictions. I think we've covered the 200 feet is not enough. In the same section, we have this wording that is called progress expeditiously. What does that mean in Zones 2 and Zone 3? Does that mean I cannot proceed at a slow no wake speed? That seems to be what it means. Sub C also says, no cutting through or mooring of boats. I think this was already mentioned, thank you, by the Booth Lake folks. Also, we need to consider just what people that aren't moored, that are just drifting. And also, we need to say what cutting through is. I'm not sure what that means. With respect to 1605, 120 sub 2, it appears that you've done away entirely with the weekend and holiday slow no wake restrictions. I'm not sure that that was the intent, but it does appear to be crossed out. Also, there's substantial confusion between skiing and surfing within the ordinance, within the amendments to the ordinance and the existing ordinance. That all needs to be cleaned up before this is approved, and I would think discussed in general. With respect to 1605.140, a mirror is simply not a substitute for a human spotter. You're not asking a driver, in the case of a barefoot boat that's going 40 miles an hour, to monitor a skier behind them on a long line, potentially, while they're going 40 miles an hour, or a slalom skier like myself. My wife cannot keep me in a mirror on a slalom ski. This is a significant safety problem. There's also the need for a second person on the boat to assist an injured surfer or skier into the boat. 1605, 245, it's simply unjust to charge a fine for something that is explicitly defined and forbidden by statute. So there's two issues. One, it says shall include but not limited to the following. Well, you just get to make up whatever the following is, the town board being that. And it also says appropriate. Appropriate to whom? So the town can simply decide buoy placement whenever it wants, however it wants. So with that, again, the Management District supports Mr. Church's proposal. Thank you very much for your time and consideration of this issue.
Thank you. Anyone else? tomorrow.
My name is Mary Quirk, W 1622 South Shore. I want to thank the town board for the time and effort applied there, for their patience and listening to the diversity of viewpoints on this issue. From its inception, Beulah Responsible Voters have been committed to preserving the rights of all voters while protecting Lake Beulah for future generations. Our approach emphasizes compromise and collaboration on a focus of education, enforcement of current ordinances, and community partnerships to strengthen safety and stewardship. In support of these goals, we've coordinated a border safety education session scheduled for May 16th, 2026, in partnership with East Troy Police Department, East Troy Fire and Rescue, Wisconsin DNR, and Sean Blanton, the certified instructor. This session is designed for participants aged 10 to 110 and will run approximately 2 to 2.5 hours with an opportunity to register for on-water instruction later in the month. The program is open to all who enjoy Lake Beulah, residents, visitors, and seasonal users alike. We've received enthusiastic support from East Troy Police, Fire and Rescue, and the DNR, and many others. We have not received any feedback from LBMD. To our knowledge, there's not been an opportunity like this in East Troy in over 2 decades. We believe this initiative represents a meaningful step forward in fostering a culture of safety, education, and shared responsibility. We invite all lake users and community leaders to participate, support, and help promote this event. Together, we can ensure Lake Beulah remains a safe, vibrant, and inclusive space for generations to come. Thank you again, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, let's move on. Thank you, everyone.